As we are in the midst of fantasy football draft season today, we are going to discuss whose stock is rising and whose is falling. A big what's up to everybody watching. I am Andrew Wilbar. Thank you so much for watching. As always, be sure to like this video, share this video on social media if you have social media outlets, and subscribe to this channel. I have a little goal. Let's see if we can get to 45 subscribers by the end of the month. Let's see if we can do it. I think we can. I trust you guys to help me out with that. So we're looking forward to see where this goes. If you have any questions or comments related to football or fantasy football, put them in the comment section. I will answer them on the next football video. To what we are going to discuss today, I have 6 different charts I'm going to show you today, all from the Fantasy Football Calculator. Great place to show with different trends and stuff, different things in fantasy football. Really good tool. You can go and check it out, fantasyfootballcalculator.com. We're going to look at a couple positions today. We have one quarterback chart, one tight end chart, and then we have 2 of both running backs and receiver charts. So in a random order, I want to start off with the running backs, at least one of the groups here. We have 2 rookies that are really moving up draft boards. One is Cam Akers, and the other is J.K. Dobbins. Now let's see if we can get this graph up there. As you can see, Cam Akers, not moving up a whole lot when you look at the actual positions of actual slots, but if you look overall, he's gone from almost a mid-10th to a mid-9th round pick. He's moved up a round since July, and J.K. Dobbins has moved up about 1.5 rounds. He's being drafted inside the top 100 picks now, and just basing off of their data. This is all since the beginning of July. And another guy who is quietly rising up draft boards, and I actually have to agree, is Jordan Howard. If you look at that, he's being 10. We're looking at this graph as a 10-team, non-PPR format, which is what I generally do for my fantasy football leagues. You're seeing he's being taken at the end of the 10th round, so he's also being drafted within the first 100 picks. But originally he was, around, 110-ish. So he as well has moved up, a round and a half, even up to 2 rounds on certain websites. He's a guy that, he's not going to excite you, but he's probably going to outplay that ADP. If you look at Miami, Matt Brieda can't always stay healthy. And Jordan Howard, let's not forget, he had some nice games when he was with the Chicago Bears. He was once being taken as a second-round pick in fantasy football a few years ago. Matt Brieda, of course, we're also comparing him in this. His teammate, he has not moved a whole lot in terms of draft stock, but all 3 of those running backs, Akers, Dobbins, and Howard, are moving up draft boards, and you're seeing this trend all across the board when you look at running backs. People are realizing that the running back position is a whole lot thinner than other positions. It's kind of top-heavy this year. You're going to have a lot of running backs go in the first 1-2 rounds. After that, there's a drop-off, and then there's another drop-off once you get to round 4 or 5, and then there's not a whole lot else after that. There's nothing proven. Whereas receiver, there's a lot of depth. You can always find your sleepers there. Tight end is kind of in the same boat as running back. You have 3 or 4 guys that are going to produce, but then the rest you just don't know. There's a lot of unknowns. The quarterback position, you can wait, in my opinion, you can wait until the end of your draft, take your 15th and 16th round draft picks or whatever on quarterbacks, and I think you'll be fine. On most leagues, you can get either Drew Lock or Joe Burrow or Ben Roethlisberger or Daniel Jones or someone in that range. So running backs, you're seeing this across the board. Running backs are generally trending up. We'll look at another running back chart right here. This one's with higher rated running backs. Another second-year running back, Miles Sanders, he is skyrocketing up boards, and I believe this trend is going to continue. I believe it is Deuce Staley, who's their running backs coach, his former running back, I believe, for the Eagles and the Steelers. He said that he expects Miles Sanders to be able to carry the full workload. And that is really good news for fantasy owners, because that was the one thing under Doug Peterson we've never been able to figure out. How is he going to split the workload? Well, they never did sign anyone. LaShawn McCoy was signed by the Buccaneers, and they still. Carlos Hyde was signed by the Seahawks. I'm not sure if Devontae Freeman's still available or not. I believe he still is, but it doesn't sound like they're going to be bringing him in. And as you're seeing, he just since June, he's moved up an entire round. He's nearing that round 1 range, and I think that's only going to keep going higher. I know the Eagles don't have a fantastic offensive line, but fantasy football thrives on volume. Plus, he's going to be getting a lot of check down passes from Carson Wentz because he has a lot of unproven receivers this year that he is going to be working with. Aaron Jones and Joe Mixon, they're staying relatively the same. Aaron Jones, I'm seeing in a lot of leagues, he's starting to fall, especially on Yahoo and NFL.com. I'm not sure about ESPN or any of the other sites, but those two especially, Aaron Jones is starting to go down a little bit. People are starting to realize that he's not going to have another 19-touchdown year. He's just going to come down to earth at some point. Plus, they still have Jamal Williams and A.J. Dillon. I'm not sure how much role they will have in this offense, but it's definitely not going to help Aaron Jones by any stretch. The other person here is Nick Chubb, and he as well, the fantasy headliners in 10-team non-PPR, they actually advised me, as I asked them a question, they actually advised me to take Nick Chubb over Alvin Kamara and Michael Thomas. Now, I'm not going to do that. I'm just not that bold. I believe Kareem Hunt's there. With being there, I just am not sure what the ceiling is for Nick Chubb. But the offensive line should be better. I know that they had one of their guards, I believe it was Joel Bitonio, opted out of the season. But they do have Jack Conklin and Jedrick Wills this year. But you've seen him. He is getting into the first-round range, originally being a mid to late second-round pick. So all of these guys trending up. Nobody really seriously trending down at the running back position. But I really believe it is crucial that you take your running backs early on. But Miles Sanders and Nick Chubb are two, especially in non-PPR formats for Nick Chubb, that you probably can take at that end of the first round, not feel too bad about it. Third pick overall, like the fantasy headliners were saying, I'm not there yet. But if you're looking at from a wider standpoint, Nick Chubb should have a really nice season, but all depends on what role you think Kareem Hunt is going to have. Let's move to the quarterback chart that we got here, and it is the duel between the top two, Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson. Back in July, their ADP was nearly the same. Now, Lamar Jackson is hardly falling. He's only dropping, overall among all leagues across all websites. Pretty much he's only falling, 1 or 2 picks. The quarterbacks always get overdrafted as is. In NFL.com, I'm starting to see both Mahomes and Jackson in some mock drafts that I've done. They tend to be, they're not sliding farther than they should be, but not as many people are taking in the first, second round. People are realizing that they can get good value on quarterback later on. You can get a Matthew Stafford or a Matt Ryan or a Drew Brees. And even on NFL.com, Josh Allen is really slipping of late, which has been a huge surprise to me. I believe he has top 5 QB potential. We'll see if he hits it. But we're definitely seeing Mahomes is trending up across most leagues. Obviously not the ones that I've been in, but with the addition of Clyde Edwards-Helaire to the offense, that running game is going to probably be better as the season progresses. Of course, he still has McCole Hardman, Demarcus Robinson, Tyreek Hill, Sammy Watkins, Travis Kelce. He has all the weapons in the world. And, of course, we know Mahomes' magic. He's just going to make it work. But he is trending up, and some leagues going to be taken at the end of the first round. For me, that is still a little bit rich for a quarterback, again, because of the late-round value. But we are seeing Mahomes' stock going up. Lamar Jackson staying pretty much the same, but he is slightly trending down. To the tight end graph, I want to show you guys. This is between Mark Andrews and Zach Ertz. And I've been saying all offseason how Mark Andrews should be taken ahead of Zach Ertz. And that's no knock on Zach Ertz, but Dallas Goedert is there. Philadelphia loves Goddard. They're probably going to use a lot of 12 personnel this year on offense. I believe both of them still can produce to an extent, but the ceiling is obviously limited for Zach Ertz. If you look at Mark Andrews, Baltimore has Marquise Brown and a bunch of other guys that are totally unproven. I believe that will be good at some point. You got James Prochet, Devin Duvernay, Miles Boykin. They have Willie Snead. They have guys there that will probably make some contributions. But Mark Andrews is going to thrive in the red zone. We saw the trust that Lamar Jackson really showed with him last year. for good reason. We're seeing his stock slightly go up from being taken outside the top 40 picks, being taken in the 5th round in a lot of leagues, to being taken at the end of the 4th round. But the big thing I want to highlight is Zach Ertz. I believe his downward trend is going to continue. As you know, so many of us fantasy football owners, we want potential over something proven, and I believe that's what you get with Mark Andrews. If Andrews is a little bit more of an injury risk, but I do believe that the upside is higher with Andrews. I would take him ahead of Ertz. And to be quite honest, even in PPR formats, I would take Andrews because he's going to be getting a lot of receptions this year, a lot of catches up the middle. Of course, Hayden Hurst is now with the Atlanta Falcons, so he's going to get only more of the receiving work from the tight end position. We just have 2 more that I want to get to, and they're both receiver graphs. This one is comparing 2 Buccaneers receivers and an Arizona Cardinal, DeAndre Hopkins, Chris Godwin, Mike Evans. And as we see the running backs trending up, obviously somebody has to be trending down. And it is the receivers. Look at DeAndre Hopkins. And I remember this on NFL.com especially. He was going as high as, the 5th, 6th pick, which was a little bit outrageous, to be quite honest. Chris Godwin was at some points as well, which I know a lot of people are high on Godwin, especially in PPR formats, but non-PPR, I think it would probably be wise to wait until the end of the 2nd, early 3rd round. And that is where we have seen his ADP fall to. He's being taken right at the beginning of the 3rd round now, was originally being taken as a high 2nd round pick. But the big one whose stock is going down is actually DeAndre Hopkins, from a mid-first to a mid-second, and I'm even seeing in some leagues him falling to the end of the 2nd round, where there's probably where I think the value actually is good for Hopkins. Again, new offseason, new quarterback, all of that, so many different changes in this COVID world that we are living in right now, that it's going to be harder for new receivers to make immediate impacts on their teams. So I believe that's wise that fantasy owners are coming down to earth with DeAndre Hopkins. And then the other one, I've been telling you guys for months about how Mike Evans has serious potential to be a bust. And I believe, just looking at the ADP, other fantasy owners believe the same way. Tom Brady is not going to be throwing a bunch of 50-50 balls 30 yards down the field. And that's what Mike Evans does best. Chris Godwin is more likely one to thrive. And maybe even some people that are high on Tyler Johnson. I've even seen some love for Tyler Johnson out of the slot. He's going to be another guy that's going to catch some passes underneath. We'll see what happens there. But maybe in dynasty formats, you may want to take a chance on Tyler Johnson. But we have seen Mike Evans' stock drop about 15 picks, and rightfully so. I believe the end of the 3rd, early 4th is probably the earliest I would take Mike Evans again, because I truly believe he is probably the biggest bust this year at the wide receiver position. And, I love the guy. I loved him with Jameis Winston. A lot of people think, well, better quarterback. Tom Brady is obviously the better quarterback, so he's obviously going to produce better. That's just not going to work. There's totally different skill sets there. Don't believe that lie. I do not draft Mike Evans for your own good. If you're going to take a Buccaneers wide receiver, take Chris Godwin. But really on all of these guys, their stock is trending down, and for good reason. Partially because the running backs are going up, but also being non-PPR format, that hurts Godwin, and new quarterback with a new team with DeAndre Hopkins, and then, of course, Mike Evans, that high bust potential. The last one that I want to look at is 3 mid-round receivers that I'm just not sure what to think about. A.J. Brown, Cooper Kupp, and Calvin Ridley. Now, I was in 2 mock drafts this past Sunday. One of them, I took A.J. Brown in the 4th round. I've seen people take him that high. I don't necessarily think that's an awful pick. A lot of people are comparing him to Michael Thomas. This year's Michael Thomas, I don't know if he's going to be quite that, but he is going to be their number 1 wide receiver, and if Ryan Tannehill can stay healthy and be anywhere near what he was towards the end of last year, A.J. Brown should still produce. But we are seeing his stock rise still since the start of the year, really, in February. So we're still looking at this. But since February, his stock has risen in over 20 picks. He was being, a mid-6th, almost 7th round pick. and now he is going in the mid-4th round range. So he's getting taken around pick 35. So if you are in 10-team PPR formats, mid-3rd round pick may not be that bad. I believe the potential is there for Brown. Very good route runner, has a lot of flexibility, can play outside, can also play in the slot, can kind of play that X receiver position that the Steelers used a lot with Antonio Brown and are now using with Deontay Johnson. Cooper Kupp, his stock is trending down. Of course, again, we're looking at this since February. He's dropped about 1 round. But I think a lot of this comes after the news that they're going to be moving to more 12 personnel. Of course, Cooper Kupp played a lot of slot. I think they're going to move him more to the outside this year, and I think he'll still produce. He's still the security blanket for Jared Goff on 3rd downs. And then PPR formats, definitely, I believe you can take him with a 3rd round pick. But he is sliding into the 4th round. He's fallen to about where A.J. Brown is now being drafted. They've about met. And if you're just looking at the overall picture of the Rams' offense, of course, Brandon Cook's now being gone. You have Robert Woods on the outside. They're going to probably implement a lot of 2 tight end sets with Tyler Higbee and Gerald Everett. But still, who's going to be that other receiver? I mean, Josh Reynolds is more the outside guy, but are they really going to start Josh Reynolds over Cooper Kupp? I do not think so. They're going to try to get Cooper Kupp onto the field, whether that means putting him in the slot where he thrives or putting him on the outside where may not necessarily be the best fit, but they're going to put their best guys out on the field. Sean McVay likes using hot hands, so maybe if Reynolds gets hot, maybe he'll use him, but for the most part, Cooper Kupp is still going to get a lot of targets, I believe, this year from Jared Goff. And then if you look at the other one on this is Calvin Ridley. He's slightly going up. He hasn't moved a whole lot, kind of just a little bit up and down. I read one report, I don't remember where it was from, but some people are starting to say Calvin Ridley is going to be a bust because he's going to have to fight for targets with Julio Jones. And I know they have a lot of mouths to feed in that offense. You have Russell Gage in the slot. You have Hayden Hurst, who Matt Ryan was talking up a month or so ago. You have Todd Gurley in the backfield, who's going to be getting a lot of underneath catches from Matt Ryan. There are a lot of mouths to feed. And I'm not as high on Ridley as some others, but it would not surprise me if Calvin Ridley in non-PPR formats outscored Julio Jones because he's going to get more touchdowns. He's been better in the red zone, which still doesn't make sense. Julio has the build to be an excellent red zone receiver, but I just don't think there's just some things you can't explain. But Calvin Ridley has been a nice red zone option for them, whereas Julio is not. I'm down on Julio. I would not take him until the 3rd round in non-PPR leagues. I'm honestly not really even thinking about drafting him in non-PPR. Of course, obviously, he gets a lot of catches, so if you're in PPR format, especially 12-team leagues, you can probably even take him towards the beginning of the 2nd round, maybe even late 1st, if the board happens to fall that way. But for the most part, Calvin Ridley, his stock is staying around that beginning of round 5, end of round 4 range. But the big one I want to highlight here is A.J. Brown. His stock is continually going up. And I believe, I can't say it's going to go up any higher than this. He's probably peaked. His ADP has probably peaked. May go down a tiny bit as we go through the next couple weeks. So you may be able to grab him at the end of round 4. But that's not a terrible pick, especially if you go almost with a 0 receiver strategy early on. You go running backs and you don't take a receiver until later on. Maybe even if he happens to fall to the beginning of the 5th and you have a pick at the beginning of the 5th round. May not be bad because he does have that wide receiver 1 upside. Again, be sure to like this video. Share this video on social media. I'm counting on you guys to share this video. That's how we're going to get the word out. I'm counting on you guys. And, of course, if you have not already subscribed to this channel, I'm hoping that you guys will do that. Of course, if you have any fantasy football questions or comments, be sure to put them in the comment section, and I will answer them on the next video. I don't believe we had any questions today. We did have the last video I did premiere, and we had some interesting conversations. So if you go back and watch that, you can enable the live chat replay and see what we were all talking about. I know Evan Wright was talking about how Devontae Parker is a steal in the 6th round. I still can't get over Fantasy Spartan's comments on James White being the next Christian McCaffrey this year. But that's another story for another day. I appreciate you guys for commenting. Always feel free to comment on these videos. I always love hearing from you guys. Keep listening, keep watching, keep sharing, keep liking, and subscribe if you have not. Thank you all for watching. We'll get some more content out very soon, so stay tuned. We'll see you later. Have a good one.